Hey, what's going on guys? How is everybody doing? In today's video, we'll be going over several team comps for Ganyu. Ganyu is a very flexible hero, being able to play both main DPS and support with ease while excelling at both. We'll be taking a look at what elemental reactions we'll want to make a priority when choosing teammates, the elemental resonances we can take advantage of, and several team comps that will utilize Ganyu's Cryo element to help support her teammates. We'll be discussing team comps from the best of the best to those easily accessible to free-to-play players. And just as a reminder that there will be a poll in the description below for you guys to vote on which team comp from today's video you'd like to see a more in-depth breakdown on, covering full character builds and gameplay. Now, with that out of the way, let's jump right into the video. Ganyu's Cryo typing gives her access to some of the most powerful reactions in the game. As your main DPS, Ganyu's main reactions you'll be looking to build into your teams are Melt, or Reverse Melt as we'll be calling it, and Freeze. Unfortunately, we do only benefit from a 1.5 times multiplier from a Reverse Melt reaction, but because of Ganyu's insanely high scaling on her bloom shots, she'll still be capable of some incredible critical hits. We'll be discussing a trick that you can use with this reaction when we get to the corresponding team. While Freeze may not be an exactly powerful reaction, it does unlock the full potential of one of Ganyu's best artifact sets, Blizzard Strayer, and we'll have another sneaky trick which we'll be discussing later. All of these reactions will require a particular artifact build to take full advantage of her damage output. For more information on which set to choose for which team, check out my full Ganyu character breakdown, link will be in the top right. As a support, Melt will still be one of her primary reactions she'll be built with in mind, though now as the Aura character instead of the Trigger character, we'll be looking at a 2 times damage modifier for whoever your main Pyro DPS is. And while she is still good on Freeze teams, Superconduct is going to be a much more important reaction she can help facilitate. For your physical teams, Superconduct is one of the most important aspects of team building, so having a hero as consistent at setting up a Cryo Aura as Ganyu will be vital. Given that Melt is one of Ganyu's strongest reactions she has access to, so are the resonances from those same elements. As your main DPS, applying Cryo with her charge shots, skill, and burst won't be an issue, so the extra 15% crit rate we can gain from the Cryo resonance will only help to keep her charge shots hitting extremely hard. Because we'll want to try and focus on using a Pyro hero for reverse Melt reactions, sliding in another Pyro hero for an extra 25% attack is something we should take a look at. Another resonance that I don't think is at its full day in the sun yet is the Geo resonance. Increasing shield strength and offering an overall damage increase when protected by a shield, Ganyu can take full advantage of both aspects. This is a bit more of a narrow option though, which we will discuss when we get to the corresponding team. We'll be looking at teams focusing on Ganyu as a main DPS first, transition into teams utilizing her as a support, and finally a look into a team utilizing her and all free-to-play heroes. First up, we have arguably one of Ganyu's most powerful teams, and that is her Freeze comp. The main combo of this team revolves around the Freeze mechanic, and specifically Mona's Omen status that she applies from her burst. The way this effect is worded makes it seem like you have to pop the illusory bubble in order for the 5-second duration of the Omen status to begin. However, the Omen status is actually applied as soon as Mona starts her burst animation, and the bubble cannot be popped if the enemy is frozen. What this means is that we can essentially extend the damage boost from Mona's burst indefinitely as long as we keep the enemy frozen. Quick shout out to Razor Impact, who actually brought this to my attention. He has a great video doing a complete breakdown of this mechanic with all the math to back it up. I recommend going to check out his video for a more in-depth look at how this works and a full breakdown of how you can apply this yourself. For our other support units, we have Diona as our healer, who also provides utility in a shield to help proactively protect our Ganyu, and Venti for CC, being able to group up all our enemies for easy freezing and, frankly, absurd damage. This comp has insane damage output and can clear out a group of enemies in no time. It also helps mitigate one of Ganyu's biggest weaknesses in shields, as freezing them will allow her to hit her targets. Mona is the best Hydro support for Ganyu, specifically because of the Freeze and Omen combo. You can sub in any of the other Hydro heroes if you don't have a Mona, though they are all much weaker and have their downsides when it comes to Hydro application, specifically when used in conjunction with Ganyu. Our next team focuses on a Pyro core to prop up Ganyu's damage with the Pyro resonance and make sure she can get big hits in with a reverse melt reaction. Bennett is easily the best Pyro support we have access to. He heals, he adds a ton of attack to our main DPS, but he also has the best elemental gauge from the Pyro supports we have access to. Keep an eye out for my future video further discussing this concept, but what this means on a basic level is that we can achieve double melt procs from Ganyu's Charge Shot and Bloom when used after Bennett's skill and burst, something we can't do after Zhongling's Pyro application. Amber also benefits here with her skill, though it will almost always be applied after Ganyu's Cryo, which will end up burning the Pyro debuff as well, which is counterproductive to what we're trying to accomplish, which is to melt with Ganyu's charge attacks. That being said, Zhongling's skill and burst have the most consistent Pyro application, while the Pyro hero is off the field that we have access to. So, she'll be our number 2 Pyro hero. Lastly, we have a Sucrose here over a Venti because we're trying to pass off Elemental Mastery to Ganyu for bigger reverse melt damage. We can also utilize a Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayer Catalyst to pass off a big attack boost to Ganyu. If you don't like this all-in style gameplay though, you can just utilize Sucrose as a Veneer support, using the elemental absorption of her burst to extend the uptime of the Pyro debuff to maximize your reverse melt reactions, and using her Swirl to lower your enemy's resistance to Cryo since all of Ganyu's attacks do Cryo damage. Last up for the main DPS teams, we have Ganyu with a dual Geo core to provide a little more protection to our frail hero, while also making sure to keep her damage high at the same time. Zhongli and Albedo are really the pair for a Geo Resonance team. Zhongli provides one of the best shields in the game, while also dealing a ton of damage with his burst and a sprinkling of crowd control on top. Then we have Albedo, who is really the glue for teams revolving around Geo. With his skill, he's the most consistent shield generator in the game, especially when he can do it while he's off the field. His crystallized shields may not be the strongest protection-wise, but since we'll be getting a lot of them, we can keep our resonance buff active most of the time. He also has a hidden little ability, which is to increase our team's elemental mastery by 125 whenever he uses his burst, which will increase the protection of our crystallized shields, but will also increase the damage Ganyu does with her melt triggers because our healer on this team is Bennett. Bennett is simply the best healer on this team because of the insane amount of attack buffs he can hand out to everyone on top of his healing, and as previously mentioned, a perfect fit for a Pyro Aura character. Now, obviously this team is expensive to build as it uses 3 5-star heroes. If you don't have one of the mentioned Geo heroes, you could sub one of them out for the Geo main character or Ningguang. Main character preferred simply because of the extra crit rate from their burst and the extra little CC that comes along with it. And you can use their constructs as a post-up of sorts if there are no ranged units around. You can shoot down all your enemies without worrying about getting hit. Moving on to our support builds, we're going to be starting with a melt team that features either Diluc or Klee as your carry. Both of these heroes have insanely high damage output, especially paired with heroes that can effectively set up either Cryo or Hydro, and that's what Ganyu is here for. With her skill, she can help supplement the CC that Sucrose is here for, rounding up enemies into one area, only for her Lotus to explode, applying Cryo to all nearby enemies, lining them up to be melted. Or we can utilize her burst to spread Cryo around with ease and use Sucrose to round up the enemies, also setting up easy melt reactions. Bennett is also here because, well, Bennett, but he also helps fill out the Pyro resonance. If you don't have a Bennett or are just kind of tired of using him on every team, Zhongling will be a decent replacement, though now without a healer, it's probably best to move a healer into your Sucrose slot. The reason I choose to go with Sucrose over Venti is both because Diluc can have trouble reaching enemies in Venti's Vortex, and it also doesn't pull in Klee's bombs if you choose to go with her. We of course need to fit Razor into this video, so next up we have the Superconduct team. I originally highlighted this team in my latest Razor specific video, however I had Kaya in the Cryo slot. However, now that we have Ganyu, we can move on from Kaya here. She has the same uptime on her burst as a C2 Kaya, is able to hit more enemies, and a little bit of CC from her skill, which will help Razor not have to do so much cardio anymore. Jinyan is better than Zhongling on this team as our second Pyro support due to her physical damage buff and debuff package. But she also benefits from Superconduct herself since the majority of her burst damage is physical. Last but certainly not least for our support comps, we have a freeze comp featuring Child as our main DPS. Child excels at AoE hydro damage and also can't shatter frozen enemies while in either melee or range stance, so pairing him with a Cryo core to help increase his crit rate will be a huge benefit for him. Ganyu will of course be one half of the Cryo resonance, but I've gone with Diona as the other half. I personally prefer Diona to Chi-Chi. I have an entire video discussing what I like and dislike about each of them, so choose whichever you prefer. We could also fit Kaya into the slot if you wanted to shy away from Xingqiu in the final slot and go Barbara, or if you just feel like you don't need the heals due to the fact that all your enemies will pretty much be frozen indefinitely. Even though we can take advantage of the same Mona Freeze combo that we discussed in the first comp, I like the fact that Xingqiu adds some Hydro Resistant Shred to this comp, which will help out Child's overall damage and is easier to achieve. We finally come to our last comp on this video, which is our free-to-play comp. You'll notice this team is almost identical to the last, except we've traded our Xingqiu for a Barbara, and we no longer have a Child on the team, but instead have slid in the Anemo main character. The idea is still the same here: freeze everything and benefit from a lot of natural crit rate from Ganyu's passives, a Blizzard Strayer set, and the Cryo Resonance. The main character being the only big difference from the last team. They're here to play the role of budget Venti. Their crowd control isn't nearly as good, but they can still shred cryo resistance when running a 4-piece veneer set. Hopefully you guys have found this team guide useful and will help you in deciding which heroes to move forward and build. Remember to vote in the poll for which team you want to see a further breakdown for. If you liked what you saw and want to see more content from me, head over to my Twitch page, twitch.tv/xjazzy, or you can help support me right here on YouTube by clicking the subscribe button, like the video if you liked it, and hitting that notification bell, that way you never miss a video. And of course, if you want to join our community over on Discord, link will be down in the description below. But guys, that's all I have for today. Hopefully you did enjoy, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.